The U.S. military has intensified its bombing campaign in Iran. In fact, for the first time, the U.S. Air Force conducted daytime bombings using powerful weapons like Hellfire missiles, targeting rogue ships and areas near the country's capital, Tehran. The U.S. also intensified its bombing of coastal military targets and islands, which Iran uses as barriers in the Strait of Hormuz. Because of this, questions and discussions are now circulating. Is the U.S. preparing for a ground offensive to take over these islands, including Karg Island, which is the center of Iran's oil production? Will the U.S. invasion plan that didn't happen during the first wave of the war finally push through? And if it does, how will the U.S. carry it out? And how dangerous will it be? That's what we'll discuss today, only here on Mr. Good Vibes. Before sunrise on July 16th, the air defense alarm suddenly blared around Tehran. The Iranian army's defenses were on full alert due to explosions reported near Tehran and in Semnan, a province connected to the country's ballistic missile production and space program. This means that the United States is expanding its target area and intensifying its attacks. The new round of bombings began on July 8 after 3 merchant ships were hit in the Strait of Hormuz on July 7, with Washington blaming Iran. President Donald Trump declared that the ceasefire was over, and since then, America's attacks have been continuous and relentless. On July 15, the U.S. military launched a rare daytime attack on Greater Tund Island, the very first time they had ever done so. This wasn't just a simple bombing. The operation against the Iranian coastal defense and cruise missile sites lasted for 90 minutes. Greater Tund Island is small, but because of its strategic location at the mouth of the Strait of Hormuz, it is used by Iran as a forward military position. From here, Iran can monitor ships entering the Persian Gulf and support missile, drone, and fast boat operations against large commercial vessels. After that, the United States stepped up its bombing even more. According to CENTCOM, Iranian command centers, air defense sites, missile and drone capabilities, coastal surveillance facilities, and naval infrastructure were hit. The target area included Bandar Abbas, Iran's most important port city in the strait, and home to major facilities of the regular Navy and the Revolutionary Guard. In fact, the U.S. even used unmanned speedboats called Corsair. Iranian media also reported attacks in Semnan, Hamadan, Hormozgan, Khuzestan, Loristan, Markazi, and Sistan, and Baluchistan. But remember, not all of these locations have been independently verified, and CENTCOM also did not release the exact aircraft or precision weapons used in each strike, so there's no way to tell whether it was a Tomahawk, JDAM, or another type of missile. In the area of Bampur, the Iranian military said that no less than 13 missiles hit the barracks of the 388th Mechanized Infantry Brigade 7 soldiers, including conscripts and career personnel, were killed while many others were wounded. In Avas, a strike near Shahid Beghai Hospital forced the emergency evacuation of 211 cancer patients. It has not yet been confirmed if the hospital was directly hit, but this shows how close the fighting is to civilians. In total, according to the Iranian Health Ministry, at least 35 are dead, more than 30 are injured, and 72 remain. At the hospital, they didn't specify how many were civilians or combatants. And as the explosions got closer to Tehran, Iran retaliated with missile and drone attacks against bases with a U.S. presence in Kuwait, Bahrain, and Jordan. But the most unusual American attack did not happen on land. It happened in the middle of the sea. While bombs were raining down on Iran, an oil tanker almost 333 meters long, longer than 3 football fields, continued to sail steadily. Heading toward Iran's most important oil terminal, it had already been warned several times by America, but it did not stop. A little later, a U.S. military aircraft approached, locked onto the target, and fired Hellfire missiles straight at the ship's smokestack. The tanker was the MT Belma, a Curacao-flagged commercial crude oil tanker that, according to CENTCOM, was heading to Karg Island. It can be recalled that on July 14th, President Trump reinstated the naval blockade against Iranian ports. Just about a day later, American forces spotted the Belma sailing in international waters heading to Karg, the terminal that handles an estimated 90% of Iran's crude oil exports. According to CENTCOM, the Belma was repeatedly ordered to change course. 2 other commercial vessels complied and turned back, but the Belma allegedly ignored the orders and kept going. And that's when its smokestack was hit with AGM-114 Hellfire missiles. The Hellfire is a well-known air-to-surface precision weapon, commonly used against armored vehicles, small ships, and point targets. The cargo tanks weren't punctured and the ship's hull wasn't blown up. The missiles were aimed at the funnel or smokestack, a part of the ship connected to the exhaust and machinery system. As a result, the tanker was disabled and its voyage to Karg was halted, but no detailed damage assessment was released. It has not been confirmed whether the main engine, exhaust system, or other machinery was damaged. There were also no reports of sinking, major oil spill, or casualties. According to tracking information, it was not carrying any oil cargo and was sailing in ballast. Under the previous blockade from April 13 to June 18, the United States said that more than 140 ships were turned back and 9 were disabled. The blockade was temporarily lifted after the June 17 agreement. In that brief opening, it is estimated that Iran was able to export 74 million barrels of oil, possibly worth up to $6 billion. Now traffic has dropped again. Only 11 commercial vessels crossed on Wednesday compared to the pre-war average of 138 per day. But here is the serious problem. America can stop a tanker, but that doesn't mean it controls the entire Strait of Hormuz. And if the blockade and airstrikes aren't enough, the next target might not be ships anymore, but Iran's very own islands. Because according to military experts, U.S. airstrikes and blockades, no matter how large or intense, are not enough to stop Iran's aggression in the Strait of Hormuz, or even to stop Iran from exporting oil. Their oil exports would continue even if the U.S. destroys some radars, drone launchers, and missile batteries. Iran has a very long coastline. Many of its weapons are mobile, hidden in bunkers, or moved before the next American strike arrives. So the more dangerous question returns. Will the United States send ground forces to seize Iran's islands? On July 13th, President Trump was asked if such an operation was possible. He did not deny it. His answer was that he couldn't say. It would be foolish if a military plan actually existed. That wasn't a confirmation either, but it also wasn't a simple no. To understand why these islands are being talked about, think of the Strait of Hormuz like a narrow subdivision gate. At its narrowest point, it's only about 40 kilometers wide. There are 2 main shipping lanes. Each is 3.7 kilometers wide, separated by a 3.7 kilometer buffer. A huge portion of the world's oil and natural gas passes through there. When shipping companies get scared, insurance rates go up, fewer ships pass through, and fuel prices can skyrocket to their highest levels. Around this gate, Iran's islands are scattered like watchtowers where they can place radars, missiles, drones, fast attack boats, and air defense systems. The first group, Abu Musa, Greater Tumb, and Lesser Tumb Islands. These are small islands. Their combined land area is only about 25 square kilometers, but they are next to the deep water route used by large tankers. Iran seized them in 1971, while the United Arab Emirates still claims them. Abu Musa and Greater Tunbi have IRGC facilities, fast boats, missile positions, and air defenses. Lesser Tumb, on the other hand, is smaller and mainly used by the Iranian military. Abu Musa and Greater Tunbi have already been hit by U.S. strikes in recent days. Of the 3, it's easier to imagine a rapid American assault. They are farther from the Iranian mainland compared to Qasem Island. The Marines could enter after bombing the remaining defenses on these islands. But here's the catch. Even if they capture all of them, the strait still won't automatically open. Iran has a second defensive line, the Larak, Hormuz, and Qasem Islands directly outside Bandar Abbas. And this is where the battle becomes extremely tough. Qasem is the largest island in the Persian Gulf. It covers more than 1,400 square kilometers. It has a large civilian population and is believed to have important IRGC facilities. It's almost attached to the Iranian mainland, so it's easy to support with artillery, drones, and missiles. If America captures Qeshm, Larak, and Hormuz, it can monitor the main passage and almost trap Bandar Abbas from the sea. This is the island group that has the biggest impact on the actual control of the strait, but it's also the hardest to hold. The American soldiers there are like standing right in the line of Iran's fire. There's another name that always comes up, Karg Island. It's not in the strait, it's in a deeper part of the Persian Gulf. It's about 32 kilometers from the Iranian coast. But this is where an estimated 90% of Iran's crude oil exports pass through. If Qeshm is the key to the strait, then Karg is the key. Under Tehran's control, if this is taken, Iran could lose its main oil gateway and a major source of income. But this won't automatically stop missiles and drones coming from the mainland. America could capture a small island. It could also destroy the defenses before deploying Marines, but simultaneously capturing Abu Musa, Tums, Larak, Hormuz, and Qeshm is a different story. This would require warships, fighter aircraft, and electronic warfare. Minesweepers, helicopters, landing craft, engineers, medics, air defense, and continuous supply. That wouldn't be a raid anymore. That would be a full-scale amphibious campaign, and the landing might be the easiest part of it. But staying here would be life-threatening for the American soldiers. If America decides to seize an Iranian island, it won't start with soldiers rushing onto the beach. It will start with a massive bombing campaign. Before the landing force can get close, the U.S. needs to temporarily silence Iranian radars, air defense systems, coastal artillery, anti-ship missiles, drone sites, and command centers. They also need to locate the fast attack boats and mine layers that could attack American warships. America might use stealth fighters like the F-35, strike aircraft like the A-18, electronic warfare aircraft like the EA-18G Growler, and MQ-9 drones for surveillance and precision attacks. They can also launch long-range missiles from ships and submarines, but it doesn't mean that once the target is bombed, it's already wiped out. Many Iranian launchers are mobile. They come out, fire, then hide again. Others may be in tunnels, bunkers, or civilian areas. A radar can be destroyed today and replaced the next day. At the same time, routes need to be cleared of naval mines. Just one mine hitting a landing ship can kill many soldiers, block the route, and disrupt the entire operation. Once the U.S. creates a temporary opening, the assault force will enter, and the Marines can be brought in using landing craft, helicopters, and MV-22 Osprey. Other troops can arrive via airborne assault, but as they descend, they need to be protected against missiles, drones, artillery, and small boat swarms. On Karg Island, it's estimated that about 1,200 American troops are needed for the initial seizure. But for a larger operation, when you include air defense, engineers, medics, logistics, and command personnel, the initial force could reach 5,000 to 10,000 soldiers. And if several islands are taken at the same time, the number will quickly increase. On Qeshm Island, it's even more intense. The island is larger. There are many residents, and it's very close to the mainland. Even if America controls the beach, it can still be bombarded with artillery shells, ballistic missiles, and one-way attack drones. After that, the hardest part of the war comes next: supply. Every bullet, food, water, medicine, fuel, replacement part, and air defense interceptor has to be brought to the island. Helicopters and transport aircraft can be shot down, cargo and supply ships can be hit by mines, cruise missiles, or drone boats. Engineers are also needed to build bunkers, repair the runway, and create defenses against continuous bombardment. There needs to be an evacuation plan for the wounded, but even medical helicopters will have to pass through Iran's contested airspace. And Iran doesn't need to launch a major counterattack. It can just let the Americans stay on the island. Then they can gradually wear them down with missiles, drones, sabotage, and nightly attacks. America might be able to take the ground within a few hours or days, but holding it for several months while the entire arsenal of Iran is aimed at them could become a real nightmare. So is it possible for America to seize Iran's islands? The answer is yes, but it would be very costly. With the strength of the U.S. Air Force, Navy, and Marine Corps, it's likely that they could capture a small island, like Greater Tund or Lesser Tund. But this operation could have 4 possible levels. Each level comes with greater risks. First, a limited raid. Special Operations Forces or Marines would land. They would destroy radar, missile, drone facilities, and command posts. They would gather intelligence, then leave. This is the lowest level of commitment, but the results are only temporary. Once the Americans leave, Iran could bring in new launchers and troops again. Second, seize Abu Musa and Tund Islands. Iran would lose its forward bases and America could return the islands to the UAE. Third, occupy Chesham, Larak, and Hormuz. This is the operation with the greatest chance to change control of the strait. But these islands are almost right next to Iran. The American garrison would live under continuous missile, drone, and artillery threat. Fourth, take Karg Island. This is a direct blow to Tehran's oil income. If the terminal that handles an estimated 90% of Iranian crude oil exports is cut off, the government will lose a huge amount of revenue. But Karg Island is far from the mouth of the Strait of Hormuz. Even if it's taken, Iran can still attack in Hormuz. That's the problem. Iran doesn't need to win a war. It just needs to make the U.S. occupation expensive, bloody, and politically toxic. And even if America controls the land, it doesn't mean commercial shipping will return right away. Shipping companies don't ask whose flag is planted on the island. They'll check crew safety, look for mines in the water, and assess insurance costs. Even if just one tanker catches fire, dozens of ships might pull back again. In America, the public might support a quick raid. But it's a different story if many American soldiers die while guarding a distant island with no clear exit plan. This can quickly be compared to Iraq or Afghanistan. That's why the current airstrikes on the mentioned islands and coastal missile sites could be battlefield preparation. They could also just be pressure to bring Iran back to negotiations. There's still no concrete evidence that a final order for a ground invasion has been given. The most likely steps are more airstrikes, blockade enforcement, and limited raids. Occupying Iran's islands all at once is possible in a military sense, but it's extremely costly in a strategic and political sense for America. In other words, America is capable of planting its flag on an Iranian island. The question is how many ships, planes, and soldiers' lives would be needed to stay there. Because the moment the first American Marine sets foot on Iranian soil, it will no longer just be an operation to open the Strait of Hormuz. It will already be a full-scale ground war, and there might be no easy way out for both Iran and the United States. And Israel might also enter the picture, which would make the situation in the Middle East even more complicated. If you like this video, share it with others and subscribe as well. Also, watch the videos on the right so you can waste even more of your time.